coming back on because वो थोड़ी देर के लिए फिर मुझे space दे देता है बोलने की. And then in case any of us cannot hear each other, the other person speaks. That's
I think we have gone live, though.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Just as exactly what happens on a live show. So my name is Kholah Yaruk Malik. I am the Dean of Academics and Internationalization at one of the leading TNEs in Pakistan. I am very happy to introduce my guests, Ms. Andleeb, Aslam, and Ma'am Amna Salik. She's a higher education professional, and Andleeb's working with jazz. She'll introduce in the show. We're going to be talking about blended work environments and how the leadership dealt with it. So, and what is a blended work environment? And I think that because of COVID and the amount of disruption we've had at our workplaces, how has that impacted women or working women and just employees in general? So, Andleeb, if you could tell us a little about yourself. And before you tell us about yourself, I'd like to thank the CxO Global Forum for powering this broadcast.
Thank you so much, Kholah, for inviting me on this webinar. I'm really honored. I don't count myself as one of the legendary leaders at this point in time, but I hope I can get there someday. Just a little bit
You're
about
halfway
myself.
there.
Halfway there, yeah. So just a little bit about myself. I actually have been working in the telecom industry for about 12 years now. I started from basic design, communication jobs, and at this point in time, I have gotten experience in the areas of trade marketing, digital marketing, brands, as well as some segment experience as well. At the moment, I'm working as the head of marketing communication for Jazz Business, which is the B2B domain of Jazz. And yeah, and I'm really proud of being here, being a female leader in the organization. So I'm really proud of it.
So how do you think that things changed in your organization? And tell us a little about the HR, how it is in your organization, and how things changed and how things have evolved. And after what kind of work environment have you had, and what are the changes?
So, starting from the very beginning, I feel like the work environment has changed, of course, but the concepts of telecommuting and flexible timings was not alien to us. We have been technologically ready even before because these concepts have been here for about a decade now. It's just that COVID came in and sort of accelerated everything and facilitated this, growth faster than we could have expected. So I would say that Jazz में पहले भी जो policy थी, we had the policy of 1 day, at least a week work from home. It was allowed on the discretion of a line manager. For females, especially who had children under the age of 10, they had the ability to even work from home more than just 1 day a week. So I feel like the setup was already there. The change actually happened when every single one in the every single person in the organization, every single employee had to go back home and work from home. So while technologically we were sound and why we had the systems in place to facilitate this kind of a move, I feel like the change that needed to be managed was on a cultural and a human level, which is something that all of us, I think, I'm sure Amna will also agree with me that this is where we struggled a lot because when even you come to think of leadership, we're actually following the same laws and the same practices of leadership set up in the ages of industrialism. But now we are in the information age, and now more so we need to sort of change the way we think. So I feel like there's a lot of change that was brought in. There was a lot of initiatives on the front HR front and on the management front that they did to facilitate employees, to make them feel that they are worth something for the company. They cared for us, even so that the chairs that we had, we didn't have lumbar support chairs at home, so they even provided those. So I feel like,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. So I feel like
Me,
that
me and
was.
Amna are totally jealous at this point. So, Amna, if you can hear me, can you introduce yourself if you can hear me?
I'm Amna Salik. I'm currently working as the head of quality assurance with the TMUC. It's a TNE provider. I have education experience working through all ages. So I worked in K to 12 as well, internationally, mostly in UAE and here in Pakistan as well. And I worked wearing different hats in leadership. And it has been a really interesting, interesting times now because I think most of the educational institutes found themselves totally ill prepared for what hit them when we had to move to the work from home scenario, and it required a lot of agility from the organizations, from the leadership, and it was a steep learning curve for all employees. Where we were going digital, it was perhaps where it was difficult for educationists and professionals to move to an online learning modus operandi. It sort of, they were forced into it, so there was a steep learning curve for them. And you're right, Andleeb, it was more to do, it was a change of mindset. It was a cultural change for a lot of, professionals. I'm sure we interact with family and friends, who work across other industry areas as well. For women in particular, it became challenging because although you had the flexibility to be at home, but it also added to your responsibilities. So you were managing the children who were there at home, you're managing a household, all of that, and your work responsibilities. I have seen people and friends and colleagues working much longer hours when they had to work from home, instead of when you go to do your 9 to 5 job, or a certain so that although there was a flexibility of where you could work from, it only added anxieties for some women. In particular, I talk about women because for men, they continue to work from home with less responsibility. So as see, women always wear dual hats as homemakers and as professionals as well. So it was more challenging for the women in particular.
But like I
Absolutely.
always say that I when I look at all my colleagues, male colleagues, I tell them I need a wife at home also. So yeah, so that's a common thing that I usually find myself saying. What do we mean by blended working environments, and what are the things that you, as colleagues or as professionals and employees in your companies, Andreeb, I'd ask you, because you work in a telco. So, what are the things that the companies have done or need to do more? 3 or 4 things that you thought that now that everything has changed, we need to focus on this more. What would that
Yeah.
be?
Yeah, so blended work environment, hybrid work environment, whatever you want to call it. Initially, when the lockdown happened, it was a completely work from home environment. But now we are moving towards, half a week you work from home or half a week you work from anywhere, and then 2 days or 3 days a week you're working from your office space. So I feel like the things that my organization did right, and the things that they could have done right. The first thing that happened was, Kholah, when we all came to home, there is this challenge that you're not in front of your line managers anymore, you're not in front of your leaders anymore, so they can't see the kind of work that you're doing. And productivity, unfortunately, usually is a measure of looking busy at your workplace, and that's not happening anymore. So a lot of people struggled with creating their space, creating their communication with their line managers. And I think the organization, what they did right over here was that they sort of came in and bridged that gap. So we had twice as many town halls We had twice as many discussions over what kind of work routines we should be having. Initially, everyone, as Amna rightly pointed out, we were all burning out by the end of the first 3 months, because it was work all the day. Everyone knew that you're going to be home, whether it is in the middle of the night, because you're in the lockdowns, right? So you're getting calls even after office hours. So one thing that became a complaint from many teams, and I think hats off to our HR for doing all of these surveys with a lot of employees. One of those things was that we are not able to define the boundary between work hours and home hours. And I think that was the most important thing. And while we also discussed the concepts of time freedom, where you give the freedom to the people, because at home you have more distractions than you have at work. So if you want to do some deep thinking tasks, and other than that, you have some quick tasks. So you need to actually have that kind of time freedom as well. But still, there has to be some boundary where the work ends and then your home life begins. So I think a lot of surveys were done in the beginning, because there were some people who were complaining of anxiety and depression because of the holistic, change in lifestyle. So this is where the HR and the management came in. They started talking about these things. They started talking about a leaner work routine. They started talking about what's important, what can we not do while we're here. What are the projects that we can bench until times resume. So this, and then a lot of trust building. I think some of the teams had a real difficult time with their leaders, because building trust with your teams is really important, especially when they're not in front of you. So that is something, those exercises and those town halls and those communication exercises where clear goals were being assigned, that was really important. And that's where our leadership and HR played a huge role, I would say.
I think I always say that in these hybrid working spaces where HR has to play a very vital role, like you greatly said that there was a lot of gray. So now work hours and home hours are now muddled. So, Amna, what are the things that you feel that the leadership needs to look at now, post now we have work environments that are so very different. What is it that what is the leadership's role, and what should it be? Now we're talking about not only best practices, but how is the leadership to behave when it comes to different challenges. Of like, I completely agree with Andleeb when it says that there's a lot of trust that needs to be built. But what are the things that the leadership is not doing, and what is it that they should be doing and looking at their vantage point? Because again, not the micro, but the macro.
So, you see, one of the things like Andleeb was talking about is accountability. You when you set up, you performance measures, and a lot of your work has to be then set up in a way that it's outcome based. And although I have known colleagues, even when they're working on site, there's less productivity. So you can still look busy while on the workspace and not
So
do
many
anything.
of them.
So many of them. We've known so many. So
Yeah.
so I think a lot of the principles are the same for whether you're working remotely or you're working on site. So what you need to do is you need to have clear demarcation of let's like work boundaries, timings, and then what is the expected. So you give them outcomes, you give them the deliverables, you set tasks and timelines, and then you give people the flexibility to meet them. So you see, what you do is then you be smart about it. And I think that is one of the successes that a lot of companies and organizations have had. Google, for example, has always had this flexible hybrid mode of working. So, but I also believe that it depends on the kind of industry you are in. We can't expect hospitals, for example, to work from home. We can't have a blended working environment for them. We have had online appointments, but you tell me, how helpful has it been? Like, oh, I have a pain here, but how do I show you? And then
Yeah.
you
How
sometimes
are you
you're
going
not
to check
even able to
this?
describe exactly. So
Yeah.
and then and with education as well, like with older children and adult learners, it has been easier in the sense that you can still give them some measure of responsibility with the students, where you expect them to attend, follow some online protocols and join in. So the onus is both on the learner and the teacher. But with the K to 12, and especially with the youngest, it became so difficult for for mothers and parents sitting at home, because not only were they doing their own jobs, but they also had to make the little ones sit in front of the screen and make them engage what was had to be done. So I believe any leadership or HR has to first recognize what kind of industry are they in. There are three things that make a difference. It's about making connections, collaboration, and it's about making sure that there's a culture. So these three things are affected with how people interact. We need the human touch. It's difficult for us to be able to just distance ourselves. I mean, I remember when we were trying to log in to this thing, one of the challenges is the digital challenge. You don't know whether your internet's going to break down, or your machine's going to collapse. So there's so many uncertainties. So you miss that. You miss that connection. You miss that human element. What leadership needs to do is to be able to sort of first of all, create clear boundaries for the times when they're expected to work, and when they need to have their own space for their family and for themselves. B, set up measurable targets, give them time bound flexibility to deliver. And if you're in the kind of job which requires human contact, so the trust and creativity comes from
I think we're losing Amna.
whether the leadership reads people. Oh, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
While she is stabilizing her connection, just to add to what Amna is very rightly putting, it is very difficult to adopt the same kind of technology in all the industries and expect everything to just plug and play altogether. But I feel this is also because of my bias, because I'm working in a telecom sector and I deal with a lot of technology driven initiatives as well. Maybe it's a little bit of a bias, but I do feel that now healthcare also needs to catch up. We had recently we had this testing at our place, which was easy shifa. They've created these pods where a patient can be tested for ECG, for their vitals, and for their all of these basic tests, and there's only one person, that's not even a doctor, that's required to basically do that. So I feel
Really?
like yeah, absolutely. And this is happening, wearables which are helping in the geriatrics division, where old patients, you can't admit them all the time, you can't keep them in the hospital all the time, but you have to monitor their vitals all the time. So these wearable gadgets through telematics, you can actually reduce the chances of their heart failures, or reduce the chances of them fainting, by just keeping on monitoring constantly their vitals and picking up the signs where it is going, if it is going towards something that could be fatal for an old person. So these technologies actually do exist, and while I do agree, I mean, you can't ask a construction worker to work from home because he has to go to the site to build a house. But I still feel like that technology is catching on, and in each and every sector, this is very important for us to start coping up and to start basically getting ready for the future. If we don't, we'll be left behind.
Will be left behind. So as long as we're taking people along, we're understanding what the human resource that we have requires, and we're building trust and we're building boundaries, and we're keeping our mental health in check. I'm going to ask both of you a question each, and you can answer as much as you can. Take one. What are the funny things that happen? For example, in a leadership role, I get to hear this, and I get to do this all the time, where it was very, very, very difficult for me and my line managers to monitor the amount of work that the people were doing. Some of my colleagues were telling me horrifying stories of endless e-meetings, and like you said. So anything funny that comes to your mind, Andleeb and Amna, that happened that you think that has been an anecdote of this time?
I think a lot of memes have already been created in this area.
What was the
But yes,
worst that happened? What was the worst that you could say that this was epic?
so for me, I think I left my camera on, and my basically idea of work from home is staying in PJs and not making hair, or not even getting out of bed at times, and just plugging the laptop in and start working. So my nightmare is always with the auto on video conferencing tools, where your video is already on when you join the room. So that I had to figure out how to turn it off before I enter, because you're relaxed at your home and there's like a 50 people conference room ready for you
Yeah, and we've
to
had so
start
many of those
speaking.
accidents, yeah, with the people in their clothes and the cameras being on. I was on a call with universities in UK, and then I am pretty much okay with being in front of the camera. I think my cat wasn't, and she had just decided that day that she wants to take over the meeting and speak to everybody around me except for me. So that was really funny, and for a minute and a half, we just couldn't manage because she was just all over the place. So, but I like the fact that this has had a lot of humor, and the fact that we've all
Yeah.
adjusted to this so well. I
Yeah,
also
Yeah.
even
feel that
the
we've Amna, you're breaking. So, and I also feel that we've all become good actors, and we can just sit in front of. So we've all just come in front of. We can come in front of the camera, and now we can talk. So I also feel that there's a lot of cosmetics involved, and we've done good. So I know people who are very camera shy, but this was a good practice for them. They all can go into, maybe if this doesn't work out, a career in acting. So that's always been a
Absolutely.
challenge for me, and public speaking, for example. And I do feel that. Because I am in a leadership role. And when we talk about blended work environments, I've had a lot of challenge. I've seen a lot of challenge for my colleagues that are probably not as camera friendly, or they're not speaking as well. There have been challenges where I've had to push my team, or look at some of the quieter, introvert, or people who are not that friendly speaking. How would I be able to help them? So, if
Yeah.
you have any examples that you actually functionally did in your roles that helped
Hmm.
your team
Hmm.
become more tech savvy, maybe saw that someone was struggling and you helped them. If you have any
Yeah, sure.
anecdotes to share, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think when you're at the workplace, even the people who have introverted natures, even they get noticed from time to time, because they're sitting there. They have to some extent they do socialize, but when they're home, it is very difficult to get them out of their comfort zone to come in and talk. Even at a forum. So with those kinds of people, we have quite a few in our team actually. So I'm talking about the entire division, that is Jazz's marketing division. So we have a lot of those people. So I think what we did was that there's a practice that goes on, that we used to have a town hall with our chief every other month. So we were having that, and then there was this comment section where we would ask people to share their experiences, and we would ask them to participate in the town hall, asking questions, etc. So what we did was that I started looking at the people who were not talking over there, who were
Hmm.
present in the town halls but were not talking.
But we're
So
silent. Yeah.
yeah. So they were just observing what's happening. So what we did was, me and my team, what we did was that we started taking them in, and we said that you have to send in a video, and that video is going to be played in the town hall, and you have to ask a
Oh,
question from the chief. Or we started a competition where we said that we are going to handpick some random people, and mostly we basically picked randomly out of the people who were mostly silent. So it gave
that's
them an
actually a
opportunity
very good idea. So you're actually giving someone time to think and do whatever
prepare.
they want to at their time, when they're feeling a lot better, and probably. And then so they were supposed to, they would upload a video, or they just send out a question to the chief, so that they'd have to send one, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you
they'd
made it
have to send
mandatory
one.
for them to sort of speak and sort of. So
Yeah.
so I have various different kind of people that I'm working with, coming from all backgrounds and walks of life. I what I did was I started addressing meetings and speaking to people, but making sure that we're bilingual. And I would say that I don't know why, but for a reason, I don't know why, but that happens. But when we're in front of the phone or the laptop or a camera, we switch to English all the
Yeah.
time. So little things like these. So what I would do is I would say, I would ask the question in Urdu, or so that at least there is participation from the other side. And I saw that that worked for me,
Mm,
because
mm,
I saw a lot more participation, even in my classrooms with students.
mm,
I could tell that every time we switch on the camera, we want to look nice, we want to be
mm,
presentable. Not everybody is going to speak, but if
mm,
you reduce the stress and tension and anxiety of being prepared for this, or
mm,
speak in the most comfortable way that you can, there are little
mm,
things that you can do that can
mm,
help. And then, yeah, you're right. So certain people would be very anti coming in front of the camera speaking. So I would ask them or encourage them to start with maybe using the SMS or the chat section. So that
yeah.
helped, and little things like basic little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amna, do you want
Absolutely.
to add any
I just wanted
incident
to
where,
say
yeah?
for the teachers did had very little choice, they had to force themselves to sort of, connect. So, where you could see in the beginning having clunky, disjointed conversations, teachers trying to ask questions and then they silence because you're talking to a screen instead of
Practically happening to Amna, what she's saying.
Yeah. I think, Amna, if you turn your video off, I think your audio will improve.
Maybe.
Mm,
Now she's in with audio only, but we can't hear her.
mm, unfortunately, the
Yeah.
perils of technology also
Technology.
show
It helps us,
themselves.
but it doesn't help us either.
Yeah, that's also true.
But I'm very happy that you're saying that Jazz did all with our HR and the organization that I work with. There were a lot of challenges, and then we had to now start talking about mental health, and we started talking about, because in a leadership role you have to look at the well-being of all your employees. And the
Mm,
things that I noticed was that there was a certain tendency to overperform,
mm,
and to become this, like I always say, the theatrics are there. So
mm,
we went through that phase of understanding what are the mental health issues that are going, like you said. Amna, we have you back. I'm so glad we do, because we keep losing you, and I
I
would like
keep
for you to say
glitching.
something. I will keep glitching. Like you were giving the exact example of what you were talking about. I'm not talk about
Yes.
mental health during these
Yeah.
times, because I think it's really important, and I want to end the conversation with mental health, because it's extremely important
Yeah.
what toll it took, and what leaders or managers need to do when it
mm,
comes to mental health and blended learning environments. So the things that are changing the hybrid environment.
mm,
So, a recent study from the Harvard Business School showed that a whopping number of 71% people wanted to have flexible work environments. A lot of
mm.
people don't actually want to go back to working full time.
So they've had the taste of the bad.
Yes, yes. So and it has a lot to do with mental health as well. You see, because while there have been challenges adjusting to the remote working setup, so I think what leadership needs to do is needs to understand and recognize the anxieties. What is put at risk the most when you're working remotely? Creativity, because you need to bounce off each other, and
Mm,
the level of trust. I think which Andleeb picked up earlier on. When you were talking about accountability. And
mm,
not knowing whether people are doing their job or not. So
mm.
I think what leadership needs to do is a build
We're losing Amna again.
Yeah.
We'll wait for her for a minute.
Hmm. Sure. I think she's dropped
We've lost her
just trying.
completely.
join again.
But anyways, Andleeb, so I want to end, like I said, with mental health. Do you want to say anything about mental health?
Sure, absolutely. I think, Khola, the thing that I mentioned in the beginning as well. It's very important to change the leadership style. If you don't change the leadership style, you can't just plug and play the same leadership style into this kind of work environment which was working at the workplace as well. It requires a lot of change. You have to understand that now that people are sitting at their homes, they are going to explore their entrepreneurial side, and it's important that
I've
you
seen
be
that a lot. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very important that you basically distinguish between what you call productivity and how it is related to the outcome. And I believe that even the definition of outcome needs to change. If the outcome is innovative, even if it ends up in a failure, that still needs to be rewarded. And earlier on, I also mentioned that the time freedom that we have to give to the employees, that's very important,
That's
because
very
because
important.
you can't really tell a mother of two children that she has to stay on her laptop from 9 to 6 just like everybody else. You have to give her the flexibility that she can take her time on the tasks. Even the leadership needs to think about certain tasks and deeply comprehend what they want to do, and then create something innovative and new. So I feel like that kind of flexibility needs to be there. And also, as I said, the definition of productivity needs to change. The definition of outcomes, the definition of objectives, it needs to revise itself, and it needs to basically connect itself with what the company's mission and values are. If it's not online, then obviously, even if you are doing the productivity that you're required to do, it's not actually happening. So that's where. And the third thing that I always say, even if you are in a workplace or you're working from anywhere, communication is the key. And it's
Yeah.
not just about
For
communication
everything.
to the yeah, it's not just about communicating to your employees, but it's also about communicating with them, listening
Yeah.
to them, listening to their
Yeah.
ideas, understanding how their thought process works and how they can contribute, and let their entrepreneurial spirit thrive like that. So I think
I think
these
I
are
think I think it gave us a lot of time and gave us a lot of mental space to think about all the things. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of creativity that took place even with Amna and me when we were, online off campus. It actually helped us think of all the things that we weren't doing,
Yeah.
how we were doing them right, so changed a lot. And I agree with you completely. I always say that if your leadership style is not changing, you might as well change the leader, because you
yeah.
you really need that new layer or the new blood or the new fresh outlook to things. Amna, any
Yeah.
parting words for me?
I think empathy, compassion, agility are the things that are
Absolutely.
going to take us on to the future.
I think you said it absolutely spot on and right. In the end, Amna closed it really well. Thank you very much, ladies. I enjoyed myself. I should do this more often with you guys, maybe over a cup of coffee later on, taking on more things. But we've done well done on the deep. And thank you so much, Amna, for joining me today and doing this. Yeah, I love talking, so this is a good way of catching up with all of you. So thank you,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wish I
Allah.
had glitched less, but
which
this is
is
the
which is
reality.
okay. Which is okay. We liked what you said. Brevity, but you said it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much.
you. Bye bye.
Allah.